I'll never forget the day the letter came. A plain white envelope with the HOA's logo stamped at the top. I thought it was the usual, maybe a community update, or some meeting notice I'd quietly ignore. But when I opened it, the words nearly knocked the wind out of me. Your house paint color is in violation of HOA guidelines and must be corrected immediately. Illegal paint. That's what they called it. For a moment, I just stared at the page. My home, painted a soft cream color with green shutters, had been like that for nearly 15 years. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't neon pink or anything wild. Neighbors often told me how warm and welcoming it looked. But to the HOA, suddenly, it was a crime. I shook my head and muttered to myself, this has to be some mistake. Life had been simple until then. I was retired, enjoying quiet mornings with a cup of tea on the porch, listening to birds singing in the oak tree by the corner of the yard. My wife, Margaret, loved tending her roses out front, and we often waved to neighbors as they walked past. It was a peaceful little street, one where people knew each other's names. But peace never lasts long when a power-hungry HOA board decides to meddle. Within a week of that first notice, another letter followed. This one was harsher. Failure to repaint your house will result in daily fines. I could hardly believe it. The letter was signed by the HOA president herself, a woman named Linda, who many in the neighborhood jokingly called Queen Linda. She was the type who lived for rules and enjoyed reminding everyone she was in charge. When I showed Margaret the letter, she frowned deeply. "This is nonsense," she said. "Your father painted this house the same color, and nobody ever complained." "Exactly," I replied. "It's tradition, not trouble." The fines began almost immediately, $25 per day. Every morning, the mailbox held another warning. And every evening, I sat on the porch, watching the numbers add up in my head. $100. $200. Almost $1,000 before the month was over. I tried reasoning with the board. At the next meeting, I stood up and calmly explained, my house color hasn't changed in 15 years. It's within the neutral shades listed in the original guidelines. You're making a mistake. Linda's lips curled into a smirk. The current board has updated the palette, she replied. Your color is no longer acceptable. Rules are rules. Several neighbors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some even looked at me with sympathy. But no one dared challenge her. That was how Linda ruled, through fear of fines and embarrassment. As the weeks dragged on, the pressure grew. One evening, Margaret found me staring at the latest letter in silence. She placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "You can't let her bully you like this," she whispered. I nodded slowly. Inside, something hardened. That was the turning point. I decided I wouldn't repaint. I wouldn't bow to unfair rules twisted for someone's personal power trip. If Linda wanted a fight, she was going to get one, but on my terms. I started gathering everything: the original HOA handbook, old photographs of the neighborhood, copies of meeting notes where no such updated palette was ever approved. I spoke with neighbors quietly, and some admitted Linda had threatened them too: fines for garden gnomes, warnings for hanging laundry outside, even a ticket for a child's toy left on the lawn. The pattern was clear: she wasn't protecting the neighborhood's beauty. She was feeding her own need for control. Still, the letters kept coming, and soon, the HOA slapped me with an official lien warning. They claimed if I didn't comply, they could put a lien on my home and even force foreclosure. That night, Margaret and I sat at the kitchen table. "They can't take our home over paint, can they?" she asked, her voice trembling. "No," I said firmly, though inside I wasn't entirely sure. "Not if I fight back." I filed an appeal with the county court. It wasn't easy: paperwork, legal language, filing fees, but I knew I had truth on my side. When the court date was set, I felt both nervous and strangely calm. After all, what was dignity worth if I didn't defend it? On the morning of the hearing, I stood outside the courthouse, adjusting my tie. Margaret squeezed my hand. "You're doing the right thing," she said. I nodded. "It's not just for us. It's for everyone Linda's bullied." Inside that courtroom, Linda strutted in like she owned the place, clutching a thick binder of HOA rules. She looked at me with a smug smile, certain she would win. But I had something she didn't: proof, patience, and the quiet support of neighbors who were just as tired of her games. And as the judge called the case, I felt a fire rise in me. It was time to make the truth known. The judge glanced at the files in front of him and then at both of us. "All right," he said in a firm voice. "Let's hear the case. HOA versus Mr. Carter." Linda jumped in before the judge even finished his sentence. "Your Honor, this homeowner is in clear violation of the HOA guidelines. His house color is not within the approved palette, and he has ignored repeated notices and fines. We are simply enforcing community standards." She sounded so sure of herself, like this was already won. The judge raised an eyebrow. "And when exactly was this color palette updated?" Linda opened her binder with a flourish. "Just last year. We voted on it at the board meeting." I stood slowly, holding my folder of papers. "Your Honor, if I may respond." The judge nodded. I held up a copy of the original HOA handbook, worn but clear. "This is the official handbook I received when I moved in 15 years ago. It clearly states my color, cream sand, is acceptable. And more importantly, Your Honor, HOA guidelines cannot be changed without a majority vote of homeowners. I've reviewed the meeting notes from last year, there was no such vote." Linda stiffened. I continued, my voice steady. "She and her board unilaterally decided to remove colors without informing the community. That's not enforcing rules. That's abuse of power." For a moment, silence filled the courtroom. Then the judge leaned back in his chair and looked directly at Linda. "Is this true? Was there no community vote?" Linda fumbled with her papers. "Well, we didn't think it was necessary. We're the board, after all," the judge cut her off sharply. "That's not how it works. HOA boards serve the community, they don't dictate without approval." I could see neighbors in the gallery exchange quiet smiles. Some even nodded, relief spreading across their faces. Then I delivered the final piece of evidence: photographs. I laid them carefully on the judge's desk. "These are pictures of my house from 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and even last summer. The color has not changed. It has always been this shade. If it was legal all those years, how can it suddenly be illegal now?" The judge studied the photos and then looked back at Linda. "Do you have any evidence that this homeowner's paint color was ever out of compliance before your so-called update?" She swallowed hard. "No, Your Honor." The judge closed the folder with a decisive snap. "In that case, the court rules in favor of the homeowner. All fines are void. The HOA will remove the lien warning immediately. And let me be clear, attempting to enforce unauthorized rule changes is unacceptable. This board is warned." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Margaret squeezed my hand, tears glistening in her eyes. Linda's face turned crimson. She tried to argue, but the judge silenced her with a glare. "That's enough. Case closed." Walking out of that courtroom felt like stepping into sunlight after a long storm. Neighbors who had come to watch patted me on the back. One man whispered, "You spoke for all of us today." Back home, the porch felt different that evening. Peaceful again. Margaret set down her teacup and smiled. "You didn't just win for us," she said softly. "You reminded everyone that fairness still matters." I nodded. Bullies only win when people stay quiet. Sometimes you have to stand up, even when it's hard. In the weeks that followed, things began to change. At the next HOA election, Linda was voted out. Too many neighbors had seen her arrogance firsthand, and they'd had enough. A new board took over, people who listened, people who cared about the community instead of power. And as for my house, it still stands in its soft cream shade with green shutters, looking as welcoming as ever. Children ride their bikes past it, neighbors wave when they walk their dogs, and every time I see it, I feel a quiet pride. The lesson is simple: dignity and truth are stronger than intimidation. Rules are meant to guide, not to punish. And when power is abused, justice has a way of finding its voice. So, if you've ever been pushed around, whether by an HOA or anyone else, remember this: patience, courage, and honesty will always carry you through. If you enjoyed this story and believe in standing up for fairness, make sure to subscribe to our channel. We share powerful, true-to-life stories that prove justice can still win, even against the toughest odds. Don't miss the next one, it might just inspire you or someone you love.